Drunken Horror Adventures. I'm Travis. I'm being joined by, I think Johnny's calling in. Johnny, is that you, buddy?
That's me, man. How you doing?
Doing good. The man himself, Johnny Trevisani. So we've got an interesting serial killer to talk about this week, and it's interesting to me because I feel like we haven't had a deeply quotable one in a while, which, of course, is your area of expertise, isn't it, buddy?
Yes, it is. A little bit, he is a pretty interesting dude, He's had some pretty fun quotes,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, the interesting thing about Andrei Chikatilo, that's our subject this week, is that I would say, and this is looking up and down on my list of serial killers, real-life monsters, whatever the hell you want to call them. I mean, I don't think it gets worse than this, Johnny. I mean, we could go on and on for months at a time and do different subjects, but I don't think it can get worse than this one. I really think this is the worst of the worst. You
think? I mean, he has all the characteristics to win, but I don't know. I mean, like Carl Panzeram is really up there with pretty much the worst of the worst. And Albert Fish, right? Albert Fish, come on, but don't worry. I mean, Chikatilo is pretty nasty. I mean, 56, right? He admitted to 56, and he was pretty gruesome on every one of them. It was gruesome on every one of everyone he killed. There wasn't any practicing at all,
Oh yeah, exactly. And if you take Albert Fish and then you multiply how many murders he committed, I think that's what you get is Andrei Chikatilo. In fact, I don't know too many people even in that league. Most of these guys, their murders, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a fucking murder, so it's not exactly the most friendly thing in the world. But you got Bundy that's strangling women. You've got Dahmer doing various things. You've got all these known people, Gacy doing the rope trick and things of that nature. Right. But, I mean, the things that Chikatilo did as far as violence against, women, children, and even, boys is just second to none to me. And for anybody who does not know who Andrei Chikatilo is, this is somebody that, Johnny, the first time I heard about him, I want to give you the quote real quick. And it's actually the first time I had heard of Charles Starkweather, too, was in the movie The Frighteners from 1996. I'm watching the movie, and there's a quote from Johnny Bartlett, who's basically the Charles Starkweather-like character. He's kind of a, spree killer. And, he says, that Russian cannibal creep is telling everyone he did 50 plus. That reflects bad. That record should belong to an American. So basically, this guy's trying to pad his numbers, and he brings up Andrei Chikatilo without actually saying his name. And, of course, later on I would do the research and find out who the hell Chikatilo was. Blake's here. Right. What's up, Blake? Blake, you here, buddy? I think maybe he's just getting logged in.
Hey, yeah, Blake, but do you know that Chikatilo had a copycat, or I don't know, another Russian killer that and he idolized? What's that? Yeah. He was a chessboard killer, and he killed more.
Didn't he claim some of his crimes? And obviously that wasn't true, but it kept kind of the heat off of Chikatilo for a little while too.
Yeah, I mean, it was what I found was very interesting about Chikatilo was that in Russia you had that somebody who followed up off of him. It was a chessboard killer, and I'm going to screw up his name, but I think it was like Pachuskin, and he had killed 62. Like he beat him. He was purposely trying to beat 56 kills, and he beat Chikatilo's 56 by killing 62. So
competitive Russians.
Right.
Hey, Blake, what's up, man? You here, buddy?
I'm here. Your show is very hard to join. I don't know why, but it kept kicking me out, and it was really, really annoying.
Johnny didn't have any issues. I wonder what the deal was. Odd.
I don't know. I've been trying to join in the call since 7:58 with no success.
You mean 8:58 our time? But yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Right, 7:58 my time. It kept saying, "Hey, how are you, Johnny? I'm sorry, guys. I just got finished doing a big book tour thing. I got some things to do tomorrow. I was trying to get all this stuff done before I had to get on here with you guys, and I ran a little late. I apologize."
Blake, why don't you, we gave a little background info on Andrei Chikatilo. I mentioned the first time I had ever heard about him was from the Frighteners in 1996. They didn't mention him by name, but that's who they were talking about. And Blake, since it was your pick this week, why don't you tell me a little bit about Chikatilo and how you found out about him?
Well, as one does when you're studying, things like this, for the longest time I wanted to be a criminal profiler, and I was very fascinated with a lot of the serial killers. One of the most famous ones one of the most unfamous or non-famous killers was Bashram. He was an Indian thug who strangled 931 people with a red sash all throughout India just after I think it was just after the 13 or 1400s. So I was kind of on a kick of learning about these sort of not mainstream serial killers. Like I'd already heard about Bundy and Gacy and Fish and all the others. And then I started looking because of the Indian thing, the Indian killer, I started looking above and beyond the United States. And then that's when I discovered Peter Curtin, and all these others like that. And then I happened upon Russia and happened upon Andrei Chikatilo. I had seen a picture of him in a cell. And he was in like this weird, almost Hawaiian print shirt. It was a black and white photo, and the way he was looking, like the look in his eyes, just looked like somebody who was out of their ever-loving mind. So I was interested by looking at the picture. So I sort of did some research on him and found out just a little bit about him. And he was a really sick guy. I mean, he had a lot of problems, and a lot of it, we go to that old argument of nature versus nurture. Growing up in the household, he had a brother who was, dead, who had died, and he was growing up in Ukraine, kind of this wartime situation. Cannibalism was still predominant, all kind of other war crimes and just detestable things going on. And then, the whole situation with his mother, and, don't you love how it always goes back to the mother? It transcends countries, generations, years, and genres of horror. It always goes back to your mother, whether you're Andrei Chikatilo or Norman Bates. Mother, mother's important, obviously. So he was exposed to a lot of sex growing up, and I think that led to his own sexual perversions and inability to really perform sexually. That was a big problem for him, and throughout his life.
Right.
He was married. But he
kind of
didn't perform.
Right? I mean,
what's that?
It was almost an arranged marriage when he got married. I mean, he was struggling with ED his whole life, right?
Right. He was struggling with ED, yeah, but he also, I think, some of that had been because he had found himself getting erect and aroused in situations that were probably inappropriate at the time, like he could hear his mother having sex with other people and, all this other kind of stuff going on around him, in addition to all the other perversions,
I believe there was a theory that his mother was raped by the German occupation. Wasn't that what I read?
That was one of the major proponents of the theory, and that's sort of where he kind of got his twisted view of sex and women, was from that,
right.
From what they say. So...
Well, that sounds like as good a time as any to kind of start from square one. And I'm going to be leaning heavily on Department of Psychology, Radford University, our buddy Mike Amott's class, Information Research, and summarized by Christina Goss, Alyssa Gray, and Joshua Villalobos. Anyway, so we're just going to kind of go through this timeline like we have done previously on different killers and people of that nature. But let's start off here. I mean, this dude, you're right, Blake. Things were fucked up from the start for him. In the 30s, and this is what, he was actually born was 1936. Well, in the 30s, supposedly, he had an older brother named either Stephen or Stephen who was abducted and cannibalized by the town people. Now, that's not confirmed, but I've heard that story, and it just kind of goes along with all the other fucked up things that happened to him, while he was a kid. It's amazing to me that there aren't more Russian serial killers from that era. Because it was a fucked up way to live.
Agreed.
So what we can confirm is on October 16th, 1936, he was born in Yabloch, Noye, Ukraine, with water on the brain, and who knows how much that had to do with what would come later. But they always talk about brain injury, so who knows? It could have played a small factor, a large factor, but it's there, and here we are reporting it. And at the age of 5, he was actually told about his brother and the issue, what happened with the abduction and being cannibalized. And I should mention that when I say, where it was in Ukraine, this was a fucked up place. This was, dealing with famine. They would farm out their resources because of communism in the Soviet Union. So these farmers, they would farm all sorts of beets and things like that. And the vast majority of it would go to be distributed among the countryside, and they're stuck with whatever's left. So it was not a great way to live. And so there was a lot of things going on. And when Stalin took over the Soviet Union, they didn't give two shits about the Ukraine. So that just kind of added to his fucked up joke.
Wasn't it one of the things that he said that he remembers his father or his parents gathering leaves and grass to eat?
Yep.
That was really how
him and his sister would eat grass and leaves at the age of 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So, and actually, his father, he left to fight in the war, and which war I'm talking about is World War II. And he was actually captured. And while he wasn't killed, that I know of, that kind of left a stain on the whole life of Andrei Chikatilo. Because you have to remember, Russia or Soviet Union or anything associated with the USSR at that time period was ultra masculine. Like anything like that, any kind of dishonor, and you're just shunned. I mean, this is the time period, and people talk about the United States, but imagine being gay in the USSR. You'll lose your job. You could be arrested. His dad was captured, and they saw that as a sign of weakness, and of course, that followed him around as well. So it's a fucked up situation, And he didn't eat bread for the first time until he was 12 years old. So that kind of tells you, how poor they were. They had a famine. It's as simple as that. And he would pray to have his father back from war. And his father, like I said earlier, when his father came back later that year, he actually was sick with tuberculosis. And he'd spit up blood and moan and lay on the bed all during that time period. He was like 13. But somehow he managed to actually get through this. I think other family members and other people that he knew had died of that at that time as well.
Well, his mother also had another child during that time.
Correct. I think that was a sister. Is that right?
Yeah, sister, yeah.
Yep. At the age of 14, he was trying to be better than his classmates. He participated in literary musical events and became editor of the school's newspaper. He went to work at a brick factory at the age of 16. Now, there is nothing more Soviet Union than something like that. And he had a part of the wall fall on him. So I don't know if that's another brain injury issue, but it's just interesting to me, that you have these little stories about like Gacy and Ramirez and people of that nature, and it just, I don't know. It's seems coincidental, but you never know. So at the age of 17, he actually cried when Stalin died. He wanted to go to Moscow and believed that communism would soon conquer the world. And that summer, he worked on the farm and was using a horse-drawn rake for harvesting, and it fell on him. So there you go, another injury for this dude. He's just fucking struggling so far.
Did a pretty rough life, yeah.
Yeah. But, thinking about this, too, at the age of 18, he finished the 10th grade. Now, I don't know how it is in Moscow, but if I finished 10th grade at the age of 18, I'm pretty sure I'd be labeled stupid. But I'm not sure how it is there. He applied for Moscow University to study law and failed his entry exam and wasn't accepted into the university. And he was actually convinced that he didn't get in because of his father's war record, which I was talking about earlier, that there's just no respect for him.
Yeah, but that wasn't confirmed. That was his thought, right?
Right. Exactly. I should mention this. At the age of 24, he worked as a telephone engineer. This is before any of his crimes. But as you alluded to earlier, or Blake alluded to earlier, I think all of this could have been fixed if he didn't have, if he wasn't impotent. That ultimately is what this is all going to come back down to, is the fact that he was